Welcome to the Enso Project. This is a podcast for people engaging in the never-ending process of expansion and growth. So the purpose of this podcast is to expand and grow through awareness, introspection, and stillness. We fundamentally understand that relative to all there is to know, we know relatively nothing. So with this in mind, we will consider and reconsider interesting perspectives, ideologies, and strategies for the purpose of self-actualization. Josiah, what's going on, man?
Nothing much.
Having a good day so far?
Yeah, it's a Saturday. It's kind of overcast, and it's kind of slow. I like it.
Man, that is like the perfect weather and setting to talk about the crumbling of the American dream, don't you think?
Yeah, sure. I think that makes sense. So yeah, that's what we're gonna get into today. Really, the American dream, what it means to us, maybe some of the origins, and really if it is actually a thing that's meant to work in our favor, or if it's just something that churns the system.
Right. I mean, there's always a difference between intention and the outcome or the result, and I'm excited to dig into that a little bit more today, and maybe learn a thing or two and find some helpful or productive strategies for navigating it in a world where I think the expectation is very much so to achieve the American dream. But the conditions, the circumstances have changed dramatically since that idea was really popularized, which I wonder when that started, honestly. I need to look into that. But where do we kick off on all this?
Yeah, so I think with respect to the American dream and its origins, I think it had more to do with establishing stability,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there you're able to upwardly mobilize, right? So the prospect of getting to a better station, or the prospect of your children getting to a better station in life than the one that they were given, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
And sometimes that meant immigration,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sometimes that meant migration, right?
Yep.
To different industrial centers, agricultural centers. But I think we really start to see it take off post World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And at least from my relatively limited research on this, and then some of the things that I've read, it was a period, I think it was under 10 years after the Second World War, where almost 75% of the U.S.'s economic budget was dedicated to the creation of housing, and invariably the middle class.
Oh my gosh.
So you had like veterans loans, right? So VA loans for homes. You had the GI Bill. You had first time home buyer programs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if they were labeled the same thing that they're labeled now, but different states, it was a federal thing, but different states could opt in to receive federal subsidy for some of these programs, and their citizens could take advantage of it. Now, we know that wasn't extended to all American citizens.
Right.
And so, what happened there is that, obviously it gave an opportunity for people that could take advantage of these programs to be able to attain a house, and then from there, upwardly mobilize, generate some wealth.
Do you think that the U.S. government was spending as much on defense and healthcare as percentage of GDP at that time? Like, I wonder, it's all trade-offs, right? When it comes to anything, there's finite resources. And so I wonder where are we spending today that we didn't used to? And obviously, we don't have the same subsidies at play in the U.S. housing market. Those opportunities are just not there. I love that. I had no idea that there was such a huge proportion of resources dedicated towards housing the middle class, which is one of the most fundamental basic human needs.
Yeah, invariably creating the middle class, right? So
Interesting
you
distinction.
created housing, and then it led to demand for housing because people weren't necessarily living in suburbs or outer ring neighborhoods. You
Hmm.
had to create that, and then that created a whole, demand and ecosystem for it. But we were much more, either we were rural or populated,
Hmm.
uh, across different rural areas, or we were aggregated in higher density areas, because it's all about labor and employment,
Right.
right? So if I'm able to build communities and structures, and then provide people with a means to commute to and from,
Yeah.
then it's going to create demand and an ecosystem that is able to service that demand and those consumers. And I think that's ultimately what happened. It created the largest consumer phenomenon that we've ever seen.
Right. Under the impression that consumption is productive, like for us as people, that would lead to human flourishing. I mean, that was the premise at the
Well,
time,
yeah, and
right?
I can't say precisely that's what the premise was. I think it's more of an observation or a trend that we noticed.
I feel like that was the promise of
Yeah.
capitalism at large, was that, if we increase our spending, if we are more like there's more trade of goods and resources between people, then it will increase our standard of living. Our quality of life will grow as a result.
Yeah, and I guess it also depends on how we define standard of living,
Right.
right? Is a higher standard of living correlated with prosperity? Perhaps, but I think on a collective level, we may not have the highest standard of living that we've ever had, and yet we're still collectively more prosperous than we've ever been
Right.
as a civilization.
As a
Uh,
society, when you lump in all of our financial accumulation,
right.
then yes. But when you dig into that data, the reality of it is that it's a much smaller subset of the population that is getting, fabulously wealthy.
Mhm.
Whereas it's like one of the statistics that we were looking up, in preparation for the episode was about average worker pay to CEO pay. So in 1965, CEOs earned 20 times the average worker pay. Today, it's between 300 and 400 times average worker pay. That's what CEOs earn. So it's a hugely widening gap, and it's increasing ever more rapidly,
Mhm.
right? So we kind of like have a runaway train here. Additionally, where's the bump stop?
Well, I think, well, I don't know, right?
I don't see it.
But but also that if I were to try to answer that question, then that would mean I'd be operating under the premise that there is a bump stop and that
Right.
there should be or we should expect a bump stop. But I think in some ways this is just acting out or playing out the way it could have possibly played out. And it is a consequence. And it may be disproportionately related to the intention behind it,
Mm,
right? And so, we know that the American dream has always promised stability, opportunity and upward mobility, like I said. But, for millions of middle class families, um, it seems out of reach. And when I say middle class, I mean that's defined by very loosely by Pew Research that says that a household that earns 66,000 to 200,000, adjusted for location, is the middle class. And, it includes a wide range of white collar workers, nurses, plumbers,
Sure.
tradespeople.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, even in some of the things that I'm reading, some of the stories that I'm reading from firsthand accounts, people, are earning as a household, over $150,000, but depending on the market that they're in, it's unaffordable.
Oh,
for them.
yeah.
And they're sitting around and their house is being lit by Christmas lights, because they're concerned about the electricity bill, So whether or not, like I said, things are acting out the way that they were intended to act out, we don't know. I can't say,
Right.
Because I wasn't there setting the intention, and I'm not sure that I've seen enough documentation from individuals that instituted these economic systems to definitively state that the intention actually aligns with the consequences that we're seeing right now.
And that's why you say that it's, potentially disproportionately related to the intention. Like we just
potentially, yeah.
It
It could be going according to plan, right?
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
don't know because I wasn't there, right, to say that. Now, and I think there's an emotional component, right, that will if you're in this range, which most people are in this range, this income range, it doesn't feel good, right? And so what feels good is either creating or finding that answer, coming to that conclusion that someone must have set out with pernicious intent for this consequence to be, right? And
because it's a negative consequence, we assume negative intent.
Right.
Which is not always the case.
Right. And then we do what we do, right? We put some sort of moral lens or buffer on it.
Yeah.
That makes us demonize people that have a different set of consequences.
Oh, but it's so fun to do that.
I don't know if it's fun, but it's certainly, it feels better.
I'm trying to speak for, humankind.
Yeah.
I think that we have a propensity for the sensational, and it's just like, if there's no drama in the situation and it's just an unintended consequence, which, to be clear, I'm not saying that it is. I think a lot of this, when it comes to our livelihoods, there is a design element here, and that people have a vested interest. There's a huge gap when it comes to information in our society. Information is not distributed equally amongst the populace. And the people with that information are going to use it for their benefit. It's like knowing the rules to a game before you start playing. You don't know the rules to the game, you're probably going to lose, at least in the beginning. And that's likely to continue for a period of time.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, please.
This question. Where do you get most of your books from?
Are you talking about like a publisher? Or?
Yeah,
because I read books on, Spotify Premium.
Yeah.
I order books off Amazon. I go to Half Price Books. I like Audible,
There's another one in there that I've heard you say.
What is
frequently. The library.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, man, I can tap into a lot of books here.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Leverage your free resources.
Right. So what would you say the composition of, the sources of where you get your books is? Did you get like 90% from Amazon or Half Price Books, or, do you get most of them from the free sources like the library or something?
Well, I think oftentimes, it's the exception, not the rule, that I get a book from the library.
Okay.
Because oftentimes it's out of stock. And I gotta wait. Or I'm going to be put on a list or whatever, know? And so if it's there, immediately accessible, of course I'm going to get it from the library. That's great. There's no cost, it's no shipping, it's no, it's that is productive in my mind. But I also am not going to wait for 3 months to get a book that I want to read.
Because you don't have to, right?
Yeah.
You can afford, you have, enough means to get the things that you need with respect to information
Oh, definitely.
and
And
knowledge.
it's an imperative
Right.
to have that information. I can see the direct relationship between my having or not having that information
Mhm.
and my success, and not in the long term, like in the near term. It's very easy for me to make that case.
Right. So where I'm going with this
Mm-hmm.
is that I don't disagree that there are some constraints around the dissemination of information,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think um, you'll find that a lot of us have access to the same information.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the value that we put on the information. I think that varies from person to person.
Yeah.
Right.
Where does that come from?
I'm not sure
But
precisely, but
take us off track.
but yeah, I think I don't think we maybe read enough as a society, and I don't think we value uh, journalism, really good journalism,
Oh my gosh.
right? Because I think really good journalism is just research,
Yeah.
right? It's getting down to
Pursuit of truth.
right, exactly, or maybe you can frame it this way: pursuit of actuality, right?
Okay.
Like, how do I break through all these different realities that consumers have,
Mm-hmm.
or these identities that people have that are based on the reality or their perception of their experience,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
And how do I, it's really zooming out,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because then you can start to see the links. Like when we look at the range for the middle class, according to the Pew Research, of being 66,000 to 200,000,
Mm-hmm.
that's really zoomed out.
Oh
We
right.
know that there are, segments within that range, and people have different identities within that, and they have different grievances and different
Yeah.
experiences.
You better believe the person making $70,000 a year, as a household, is living a different life from the person making 197.
Right. Right.
That's for sure.
Right. And so I think they have different aspirations as well. And I think that they perceive information differently. And I think they have different circles and environments that they
Yeah.
hang out in. Right. And so the good thing, positive thing about where we're at right now with respect to the dissemination of information is that we can actually start to create the links for different segments and help people see that your experience is not that different from someone who seems like they're doing a lot better.
Right.
Right. It's really more of a a deeper emotional connection
Yeah.
that I think we could have, but money and affordability get in the way of that. Go ahead.
I think that I really appreciate what you're saying. This is like super stimulating to me, because when you zoom out far enough, I think it becomes apparent that we all are playing the same game. And when I say like, what's the game that we're playing? We are all trying to satisfy our emotions.
Yes.
I mean, like, and I know I'll get some pushback from, on this from some people. But I think that even if you think that you are not being driven by your emotions, you don't like the way the thought that you are driven by your emotions makes you feel.
Right.
And this is why you resist it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I agree. So the person that makes $66,000, $66,000 a year, if you try to separate them from $10,000 a year, they're probably going to feel the same way that the person that makes $10 billion a year would feel if you try to separate them from 1 billion.
Right.
Right? They're going to
Yeah.
feel the same way. It looks different, but the emotion is, I think, the same. That's my hypothesis. No, go ahead.
I think that seems fair.
Yeah.
You know, we have an aversion to loss, period, and we also have an inflationary relationship when it comes to the difference between our income and our spending. So, you know, they're feeling a lot of the same feelings. Is it do they have to? No, absolutely not. You can live on significantly less of your income the more that you earn. The question becomes, what are you spending it on?
Right. And that is typically tied to the responsibilities you have.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, I think, you know, I don't know if you've been around extremely wealthy individuals.
Mhm.
I have. And, you know, because sometimes the behaviors are very similar to people that have, you know, relatively no money. Like,
Explain that, please.
so like, you know, they're always hunting for bargains, or they're always, you know, looking for ways to conserve what they have, right?
I mean, they never stop playing the game.
They never stop playing the game.
Game
right?
that got them where they are today.
And look, I've been insolvent, you know, for, you know, a year and a half, and I'm telling you, like, my behavior has definitely shifted around, like, you know, bargain hunting and like finding deals and like doing different things, moving money around, and, you know, nothing pernicious, but
Yeah.
my point is, there is it's a game, right? And I think the people on both ends of the spectrum play it really well. It's just that, you know, some people have more chips,
Yeah.
right? Or they feel they have more to lose, or have gained more in some way. Whether, I don't know how they got it, right? And I don't think that, for the most part, doesn't matter. But the scarcity mindset is prevalent in both segments of the population.
I agree.
And so I think in some ways we have to address the emotional component that the consequence of disparity has facilitated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think once we do that, then I think people will start to do things that align more with their inherent desires.
Yeah.
That will ultimately, I think, create a lot more value. And then that value is then aligned with some sort of monetary gain.
Yeah. I agree with you. I'm trying to think here. So this is going to sound very like postmodern, relativistic, but going back to this idea of our emotional relationship to money, or our emotional relationship to anything, you know, my conception of emotions is that it's the fuel that drives all of human behavior. And we get so frustrated sometimes, this is ironic, but frustrated by negative emotions, by
Right.
having negative emotions, right?
Right.
There is a mental health care industry that is booming because we have such a hard time processing, handling, dealing with our negative emotions. But I see it as like all of these, if you don't have any emotion at all, there's no reason left to act. I just wonder how many people consider that, you know?
Well, go ahead.
Well, just to finish that out, if no emotion is related to no action, and intense emotions are related to intense actions, and we know that action is the mechanism that drives our experience, which drives our quality of life. So the point of all of this, what I'm saying is, in theory, if you master your relationship with your emotions,
Yep.
you've unlocked this reservoir of energy, resources, capital to go out and do whatever it is that you want to do. And it can be context dependent.
Yes.
So you don't even need to, I think that there's a growing segment of the population that is like the optimists. And this is a group that I belong to on some level, right? I mean, I don't know that I feel like this is kind of like just natural to me, but I see tremendous value in focusing on what we have as opposed to what we don't have.
Yes.
And that is more productive for me and how I harness my emotions. But if you're in a crisis-like situation, maybe you're not trying to harness positive emotions. Maybe you're harnessing the adrenaline that's running through your veins right now that gives you the energy you need to act and to save a life, to prevent a critical mistake from being made, whatever it is. I was like, I'm eager to talk to you about this because you are one of the people that is a role model for me in terms of mastering that emotional relationship. And I want to I'm not trying to hype you up too much. I think maybe sometimes when people meet you, they're like, does Josiah have emotions? And the answer is yes, he absolutely does. He just has a different relationship to his emotions than the average person.
Right.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's very simple. Like, for me, at least, I'm not saying it's simple for everyone, but I try to work through my emotions, process them, and find opportunity, or at least be clear enough to see the opportunity. I don't have to find it. It's there.
It's there.
But if I'm so aggrieved or if I'm so angry about my current situation, and I'm seriously, I have barely been able to meet my basic needs. If it weren't for friends and family and like donations and but it's also helped me understand that I might actually be proficient, or there was the opportunity to become proficient in fundraising, even if I'm fundraising for my rent.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it because of the mission that I'm on.
It's part of a bigger dream.
Right. Yeah. And I'm committed to that. I could get angry about being fired a couple times, or unemployment running out, or, and these are things that would allow a person to feel disenfranchised in some way. Or I could find the opportunity to develop aspects of myself, work through the emotion. I'm not saying that it didn't hurt.
Right.
Right. I'm not saying that I wasn't angry about it. But the question is, how long do I need to sit in that emotion, and how much time am I wasting in between the event and finding the opportunity that the event maybe created?
Right.
Right. And to me, that time is so valuable.
Oh, it is.
And I think when you can work through it and get to the point where you find the opportunity, I think you can leverage one of the most important factors about being a human being, even in our time, is the ability to facilitate or create.
Can you explain
from
that a
your
more?
experience.
Yeah.
Right. So, I think we're problem solvers, but you have to go through the problem first to see the opportunity to solve it.
Yeah.
And then when you solve it or create something that solves a problem, because our experience is unique, but not our conditions, it's much more likely that you're creating a solution for someone else who has either been through the problem, currently in the problem, or will go through the problem.
Yeah.
And they're effectively, because we're all connected, they're waiting on you. You are the person that has that solution, but you have to have that experience to, and have the problem.
Yeah.
And have the passion and energy and fuel source to really create it.
It's interesting because the energy of being in a problem is very different from the energy that leads you to solve that problem.
Right.
But one must precede the other.
It has to. It has to. Just like you said, you can't have action without some emotion,
Right.
right?
Oh yeah.
But I think in some ways our emotions are derived, or at least they're not derived, but they are facilitated through events
Oh,
and how we
definitely.
perceive those events.
I was about to say, like, what is our filtering mechanism? I think of it as like the experience goes into the top of the funnel, and then we have our emotional, perceptual filters, our value systems, our belief systems, our worldview, and all of that is filtering out what comes through. That's our emotional reaction to them.
Right.
So if you want to augment your relationship with your emotions, obviously you can top a funnel. You can curate your experiences. This is my wife. She rings even when it's in Do Not Disturb. Love that. Love you, baby. So anyways, yeah, you can curate the experiences that are coming into the top of your funnel up to the best of your ability. As we know, life as it is, you cannot always do that. You're going to be put in situations that you don't appreciate, that make you deeply uncomfortable, whatever, fill in the blank. So I think like getting into Viktor Frankl, right? And Man's Search for Meaning, embracing that pause, that's at the level of the filter, at the level of interpretation. And I don't think that I don't want to make this sound easier than it is. I don't want to make it sound harder than it is either. Because I think we can catastrophize things sometimes and make it a much heavier lift than it needs to be. But I want to stress how the reason that I use the metaphor of a filter is because we influence the filter, but we're not like waving a magic wand and changing it without any effort. Like if you want to change part of the filtration system of your water purification system, then it's going to require some labor and getting in there, examining the different layers of filters that are installed in the system and making intentional choices. And then it's an A/B test. It's the process of iteration. Okay, what was the impact of that?
Right.
And so I don't know. I like this because I feel like it gives us agency and it makes us powerful in the arena that is probably the biggest determinant of our overall quality of life, bringing this full circle back to like what we're conceptualizing as quality of life and being in a certain income bracket, which I hopefully is apparently bunk for the majority of people. This is aspirational. I don't think that that's actually reality. I think that by and large, we still judge our quality of life based off of our level of income.
Right. And access.
Oh yeah, and access, status.
Yeah.
Well, what are we? We're not even talking about the biggest determinant of violence and depression and alcoholism is inequality.
Right.
It's the feeling of the perception that we are not accepted in certain circles, and it's all related to our value, our worth.
Right.
And I think it's just kind of like the easiest proxy in like a free market system, like the one that we live in, is wealth.
Right.
Wealth is going to be one of those status symbols, essentially.
Until relative wealth is unattainable.
Okay, perfect. So, I want to like get in. I know we have some things that we want to cover. So, I know this is kind of yeah, no, but I like it. This is all related. It reminds me of something that Dave Ramsey has once said, where he talks about, we like to update the American status symbol from a BMW to a fully paid off mortgage. Right? One that is very front and center, very tangible, very obvious. It's a social cue.
Yeah.
The other, I'm probably not going to know that you own your home unless we're pretty close friends, unless it becomes relevant. It's not something that you're like, yeah, I have a wife, 3 kids, I own my home. That's what you need to know about me, So I I like that. I think that it's more relevant and attainable, especially because home ownership itself has become a pipe dream.
It has. But to your point about Dave Ramsey, what he's really talking about is behavioral shifts.
Explain that.
Well, I think, going and buying a BMW and, paying off your mortgage require you to behave in certain ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? And both take action. And as we said earlier, clearly established, most action is derived from emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So when you shift your emotion or your mindset around some of these things, because that's really what they are, they're possessions
Yep.
or things that you would like to
Tools.
acquire, right?
Really.
Then your behavior starts to shift as well. And that's why, like, we're seeing, like, this middle class, they're hunting for bargains.
Mm-hmm.
They're cutting back,
Yeah.
right, more frequently. They're reducing, the amount of meals that they eat out. And, frugality is becoming the defining trait of the middle class consumer. So they're still consuming. They still have a very large purchasing power, but they're changing their behaviors. And I think in some ways, the consequences of the system that we're in is shifting their mindset and thereby changing their behaviors or shifting their behaviors. And so, there are going to be all types of products,
Mm-hmm.
consumer products that appeal to people, right?
Yeah.
That didn't appeal to them before. And it's mainly because of that chain. And just like the mortgage, paying off the mortgage, right? Compared to going and buying the BMW,
Yeah.
they're going to take pride in maybe downsizing and living in a smaller structure or buying a smaller structure from the beginning. And not thinking that the starter home has to be, 4 bedrooms or, 3,500 square feet, right? That's not going to be appealing to them anymore.
Right.
Just like the BMW is not appealing to the guy with the 2 kids and the paid off mortgage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so, I think that's a perfect segue into, what we're attempting to do with HomeEc.
Yes.
And with respect to housing, we're really trying our best to help people really do 2 things. Get the most out of what they have,
Mm-hmm.
optimize what they do have, help them focus on what is there, not what they stand to lose, but
Right.
what they stand to gain, right? And that is very tough. I mean, there's a lot of research
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody, hey, you got a 60% chance of winning, or you got a 60% chance of beating the odds, they're going to focus on the 40% loss.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and it's a framing thing too.
Yeah.
If you tell somebody they have a 60% chance of winning, they might be excited about that.
Exactly.
But if you tell them they have a 40% chance of losing,
Yes.
oh my gosh.
Yes. And that is what we're doing, right? With respect to our first objective.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is really helping people shift their mindset on, or really what they value, or really, align
Mm-hmm.
their consumer purchases with really what they actually value, right? Where we're actually headed. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more multi-generational living.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think we value connection more than anything right now. I just think we don't understand how to actually connect in an optimal and efficient way.
Well, I like that question. That could be a whole nother podcast though.
Right.
My question for you is what's driving this? The consolidation, the multi-generational living. Is it a desire to connect, or is it a financial stranglehold?
Well, I think let's start at a macro level.
Okay.
Right? we're seeing a lot of consolidation. And what drives consolidation?
Um, ownership. I mean,
Ownership, yeah, but typically it's risk. We're mitigating risk, right? So when you
like
look at
consolidating or diversifying.
consolidating, right? So Netflix just bought Warner, right? They consolidated. They said, "Well, this was too good of an opportunity,
Mm,
and it will allow us to continue to provide our product to households for generations."
right.
But what it also does is what? It keeps them profitable. It offsets the risk of the business going down.
Right.
Right.
So they diversified through consolidation.
Yes. Yes. So I think on a micro level, what's happening with respect to affordability is that we are what? Consolidating our resources as families,
Yeah.
right? To offset the risk of losing generational wealth. But
Mm,
we're also diversifying in some way. If you spend more time around grandma or grandpa,
mm-hmm.
more than likely you're going to be a little bit more, you're going to be in a position where you can navigate some of life's challenges with a different perspective,
A bit more wisdom
a
on
bit
your
more
side.
wisdom, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not in a position to do that because grandma is living in assisted
Nursing
living
home. Yeah.
facility, yeah, that costs on average $800,000 to get into,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're looking at anywhere between 7 to 10,000 a
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
That puts strain on families. So, and then if I'm mom and dad, I got to do what? I've got responsibility. I'm sandwiched. It's a
Yeah.
literal thing, sandwich
Yeah.
population. And I've got to keep up with that responsibility by going to work,